Okay, some huge unconfirmed news have been going around on Reddit and on Twitter about the Tier 2 dungeons coming in November. A lot of you are familiar with the concept of Tier 1 and Tier 2. Currently we are in Tier 1, and when the Tier 2 dungeons come, normally with Tier 2 dungeons we will get the Tier 2 gear as well. But the way it is, Amazon has previously said and stated that they plan to release Tier 2 dungeons without the Tier 2 gear. But you're probably asking yourself, what's the point then of having Tier 2 dungeons if you cannot get any gear? Well, here's the twist, because in those Tier 2 dungeons, currently in the Korean version, the gear from field bosses, or as you would call them open world bosses, the Tier 1 gear is available on those Tier 2 dungeons as the drops and as the rewards. And why is this important? It is important because a few weeks ago the chests containing these gear items from the field bosses have been leaked and have been data mined. So it is pretty much unofficially confirmed that Tier 2 dungeons coming on global in the November, as the Amazon already confirmed that they aim to release Tier 2 dungeons in the November, are coming with these boxes. And why is this important? It is important for one very specific reason. And that reason is that the Tier 1 gear, the field bosses gear, not the trash Tier 1 gear, is going to be available in the dungeons. Most likely for the same amount of tokens that you would need to craft the current Tier 1 chests. These are all selection chests, so you can pick the gear that you want, and there's 5 Tier 2 dungeons and Tier 2 bosses. As you can see, the first Kertaki armor selection chest only contains chest pieces. Shakarus contains gloves, Turka contains helmets, Gaitan contains boots, and Caligras contains legs. This is purposefully designed like this so that you have to farm each dungeon to get the set completed or to get the piece that is missing for your Tier 1 gear. So for example, if you follow my longbow dagger build, you are probably missing Shadow Harvester trousers. And these trousers are currently very expensive on the auction house, and as you can see, after farming enough of the Caligras dungeon, you should be having enough of the tokens to actually craft this box and select Shadow Harvester trousers if you don't get them as a drop beforehand. These are all drops from the field bosses. You cannot drop any weapons, of course, because that would be a little bit too much, but the actual gear that is going to help you complete your Tier 1 set, that is actually going to make you upgrade your current, let's call it trash and low Tier 1 set into the what would people call a pay to win set, with all of these expensive items that can only drop from high level open world bosses. And as you can see, Swirling Essence robe that only drops from Belandir is going to be available for the first Tier 2 dungeons dropping from Kertaki. And also the Shadow Harvester boots that only drop from Tevin currently are available in this box. This is huge news for one specific reason, and that is that the prices as well of these items are going to drop and the market is going to completely crash. So it is very important that you do not spend any Lucent until Tier 2 dungeons are out and until you can farm this. The Amazon has confirmed that the Tier 2 dungeons will be coming in November. The date is still unknown, but from what we know in the Korea, they have released these Tier 2 dungeons periodically. Each 2 weeks they would release one dungeon. But that would mean that it would take 10 weeks for the full Tier 2 dungeons to release, and that would kinda be too long to wait for these item pieces that you potentially need. So my guess is that all 5 Tier 2 dungeons will be available on the same day. Of course, I already have prepared Tier 2 dungeon guides. I will be publishing them as soon as we know more information when and how these dungeons are gonna be made. And with this news, I will be changing some of my builds to add these easily obtainable gear pieces to the new builds, and I'll try to make something even better than what I already have. Because right now this is what I am using. And if you haven't already fully completed this build like I am, you probably should upgrade to the new, let's call it, pay to win build. But the main important thing is that you do not spend any more Lucent on buying any of these expensive gear pieces. Save your Lucent, sell the gear if you can get it, completely sell it, get as much Lucent back as possible, and just get ready for Tier 2 dungeons and start spamming them. Also, you don't have to worry about your dimensional contract tokens, because if you expected that you're gonna be able to stack this to 4,500 and then start spending it when tier 2 dungeons are out, well, it doesn't work, because this is only for tier 1, and for tier 2 there's going to be a new tier 2 tokens, which you can already see if you go into edit HUD. You can see this is going to be the icon, and it is already available in the game, and this is going to be the new tokens that you will use for tier 2 dungeons. And you need to know that tier 2 dungeons use 450 of these tokens. So daily you will only be able to do 2 tier 2 dungeons. And you're probably asking yourself, why is Amazon actually releasing this Field Bosses tier 1 gear in tier 2 dungeons? Well, the simple answer is because in a recent interview that Canon did with one of the developers from Amazon, that same developer have stated that their goal for releasing tier 2 gear is late Q1 of 2025. And late Q1 means, yes, it means March. I don't entirely think that this is the correct timeline that Amazon planned on doing this for tier 2 gear, because this would make it that tier 2 gear releases 6 months after the initial game release, which is actually longer than it took Korea to release tier 2 gear. So I'm hoping that in early January we can already start seeing tier 2 gear appearing in those tier 2 dungeons, because otherwise we are going to be very behind in terms of gear and in terms of content. We're still missing a lot of stuff that the Korea already has, like rune system, substance transformation, resonance traits, but they have said that they are reworking the system to be more friendly for the global players and less pay to win and less grindy. But for now, this is good news, because you can actually make a pay to win, like people would call it now, pay to win build for your tier 1 character, and it's all going to be obtained through farming dungeons. You can farm older dungeons, you can farm new dungeons, but you can actually have a full 4 set piece Shadow Harvester with a Swirling Essence robe for your DPS classes. I will also do a lot of brainstorming behind the scenes. I will also live stream and do some brainstorming live on the stream during the weekend. So feel free to check it out on YouTube and ask me any questions that you want to know about the future of tier 2. Hopefully I made these things a little bit clearer. The most important things are: do not buy any expensive gear items, save your Lucent, sell all the expensive gear items that you can get, and just be ready to do tier 2 dungeons, to grind them. And of course, you probably will not know the mechanics. I will have all the 5 guides uploaded on my channel, and as usually they will be from 3 to 4 minutes long, so you can actually watch it and not to waste a lot of time and learn all the mechanics very fast. The dungeons could be very difficult if you do not know what you're doing or if your gear is very low, but the minimum combat power requirement is going to be 2500 to entry, so please work on getting at least 3000 combat power before you actually try these tier 2 dungeons. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I'm gonna read and answer them all. But remember, do not spend your Lucent. The market is going to crash. Thank you for watching, consider subscribing and watch some of my other videos appearing on your screen.